welcome to episode 9 of the Ammo Hour. I've been trying to record this intro a few times, having to move around because of the sun, but what a nice problem to have here in bonnie Scotland. I don't know if we have any listeners from out with our country at the moment, but not very normal here, and it's unquantifiable the difference it's making in my mood and a lot of the people I know around me who suffer from kind of mental health issues, especially over the dark winter months. I was actually reading through some messages in a little group chat we've got to just be a safe space to talk, and we've got a football team, Glasgow Saints. A lot of the guys go from there. Check that out, by the way. It's a charity football team which does all we can to raise money to fund our local food bank and asylum seeker and refugee charities. You can check that out at Glasgow Saints FC on all social media. But yeah, going back to the point, everyone was really struggling. Obviously, a lockdown was a different kind of stress, but it was a really cold, dark, bleak winter months, all the way from kind of end of October until probably a couple of weeks ago. Just rainy, dark, long, dark days. Unless you're getting up super early in the morning to catch maybe a couple of hours of sunlight as it come up. It was just really rough, and instantly March comes and it's sunshine. It's 15 degrees, which here again is pretty hot, but just sunny day all day, and I found myself out running again, doing exercise, football's returning, just so much more productive. I've been sitting on the back burner for about 20 demos from my band We Came From Wolves. We've got a special release coming out really soon. It should have been out by now, and I'm so excited to release that to everybody. So again, follow We Came From Wolves, just at We Came From Wolves, no spaces, or on Spotify. If you want to check that out, that's coming so soon. And we're demoing the second album, and I've had maybe 20 tracks there that I've just been meant to demo, and we're sitting in winter months with nothing to do, and I just can't be bothered. Like, the energy to just do something I love is not there. Yet when this sun's coming out, even though I want to be outside, I'm sitting here with my coffee and I'm hammering through these demos because I'm inspired again. Like, the sunlight inspires me. It's just a bigger metaphor for the whole life, isn't it? Like, sunlight, warmth, like it's a nurturing element. But obviously, it's strange how we don't remember, that this isn't a surprise. This happens every single year of our lives, and it's happened since the dawn of time. The seasons, like, it's going to be bleak and dark. But just like anything, you got to get through the struggle to get the payoff of the sun and the warmth. So it's strange that it does affect every year, but it does. And I'm just so thankful we're through that. It makes me think, nobody's got it easy. Everyone has their own challenges, but it makes me think, how much nicer it would be to live in a place where, it's not dark and rainy and wet and freezing in the winter. And I wonder if that, I've no doubt that links to a lot of the mental health issues and health issues, obesity problems and stuff in the British Isles. They're interesting topics for another day, I guess. But just wanted to put that out there, put that energy out there, and hope that everyone else is feeling the same. And wherever you are in the world, I don't know if it's your summer or winter, but shit times aren't permanent, and the good times will come. So I've been buzzing about productivity, got all the demos off, sending them through to my drummer Andy. He's going to work on that, bounce them back. I'll then lock in new guitars to that. We'll get off to our bassist Rob and our guitarist in Canada, Callum. They'll do some vocals on that, and then we'll be sorting out pre-production with Neil Kennedy, who you saw a few episodes ago. And then we'll be working on pre-production up here in Scotland, and then looking to book sometime, hopefully this year, the end of the year, down in the Ranch Studios in Southampton to record the We Came From Wolves' second album, which we've been kind of chipping away at since 2015 for a follow-up. Put out some EPs I've been really proud of, but That full length's been something we never wanted to take for granted, and only wanted to put together when we thought every single song was worth its weight in gold to us. And I've gone through about 50 plus demos, like more ideas on my voice notes, but actual sitting writing songs. And then we whittled that down to about 35 to eventually get through together to pick what we liked, and came down to a kind of final 18, which we'll go and record and then choose anywhere between 10 to 15 of those to go on a record. So yeah, but yeah, as I said, a really special release coming out way before that. We're talking could be days. We're just waiting on a final bit of artwork, and that'll be really cool to announce. Yeah, I don't even want to say anything here because we'll do a cool wee announcement on it soon. But yeah, follow the pages if you're a fan of the band, or if you have a wee listen through hearing me talk about this and you like it, follow We Came From Wolves, and yeah, we'll be releasing something pretty soon. But yeah, that's me. That's me on all my inspiration this week because of that lovely big gold disc in the sky. Thanks so much for checking out the podcast. You can follow us at The Ammo Hour on Instagram. It's then got the link for YouTube, all the places you can listen to the podcast. Please give us a like and a subscribe. Please comment. All these things help the algorithms and help more people listen. We're going to get a little visit here from Ranga. How you doing, bud? That's my cat, if you're listening. So yeah, The Ammo Hour on socials. And please give me your feedback. I've also asked, if you think there's somebody I should be talking to, it would make a really interesting conversation. It doesn't matter the subject. I'm not looking to speak to somebody from music or somebody from this industry or that. Just people who are interested or have cool ways of looking at life. They don't even need a story. I just want to hear from interesting people. And please just drop a message in the comments or DM me, whatever. You can also email at theammohour@gmail.com. And as always, 20% off at the merch store. We got some awesome tees, cool wolf and traditional key designs and hoodies, which you can get at theammocollective.bigcartel.com. And if you put The Ammo Hour at checkout, you'll get 20% off. As I said, all the links are on Insta. So basically, head to Insta at The Ammo Hour and everything you need is there. Today's guest is an absolute legend. It's Chris Dudley from the band Underøath, which is one of my favourite bands. A band that inspired a lot of my listening and writing habits, from being a kind of young, angsty emo dude into an older, angsty emo dude. But he's such an interesting guy. On all the kind of interviews I watch from Underøath, obviously I'm a vocalist and a guitarist, so I've always been super interested in Aaron's vocals, Spencer's vocals, and obviously all the guitar work as well. From especially Tim's stuff, really interesting style. But Chris has always been a guy that spoke so well. His element of adding synths and textures and pad work to their music, I feel, took them from being a really great kind of band in the rock kind of genre to just something different, ethereal sounds. And when they brought out their album, Lost in the Sound of Separation, I really just thought, it had gone to new levels. And it was the effects and the textures that he was putting into their sounds just made it sound cinematic to me. And from just listening, if you weren't maybe watching live videos, I was able to just be immersed in this record and listening from start to end. It was just a whole new experience. And then it became no surprise to me when I saw him pop up on social media channels saying that he is now scoring films, or has been over the last couple of years, because I feel that his style lends itself so well to that. So that's something I was really interested about and talking with him about. And then again, when I was midway through the pandemic, the first lockdown, they released on their channels a kind of talking about each album in depth. So it was just one album at a time, and I'd really recommend any music fan, not just a fan of Underøath, to go and check that out. So they did an album rundown, so 5 or 6 different 2-3 hour long and the episodes on YouTube, and they got their producers in, people who were in the band at that time, people who contributed to making it. And it was just so in depth. I've always also loved their kind of recording studio videos and all this. So from that, I had kind of shared that I was watching that and just tagged a couple of Underøath guys that I followed on social media. And Chris was just super responsive, saying thanks for watching and stuff. And from there, I just kind of, kept in touch a little bit from afar, being respectful that this is a guy, I'm just a fan, at that stage. So it was awesome that he was responsive to coming on this and having a conversation. He doesn't owe that to anybody. And a lot of people at his level will look at the numbers of followers and things like that. And we're not where we want to be at that point. I don't have any targets, but we certainly want to be more than, just a few kind of key listeners, as thankful as I am to all of you. But that wasn't his attitude at all. He said he would love to chat, and super thankful he gave up his time to do that. So they talked about, don't know if I got an exclusive, but pretty recent news about their new album and the fact that they've done it themselves for the first time in their career. We talked about his scoring, we talked about the pandemic, and we talked about a lot of stuff in between. So again, thanks so much to him. Thanks so much to you guys for listening. And without further ado, this is Chris Dudley of Underøath, and it's episode 9 of the Underøath. Okay, I'm here with Chris Dudley from Underøath, synth player and absolute headbanger extraordinaire.
To my detriment, I think, but I'll take it.
You suffer bad from the bangovers on tour, man.
Oh yeah. It's kind of beyond that at this point. Like there's anybody who's like in a heavy band knows that like after like, a week or so of being on tour, like the muscle fatigue goes away. But I've been doing this for a long time, so my actual like skeletal makeup of my neck is like just trashed. But it's rock and roll and I have fun. So yeah. Good times.
Yeah, man. Jesus, it's like, I sing as well. I do a bit of headbanging on our tours, but it's not super heavy. I was in heavier bands when I was younger, but yeah, man, like you get that dull ache after maybe a week, and then it's just like second nature, but can't be doing great things for the vertebrae, can it?
Yeah, no, it's not great. I had to go to a doctor because I was having some weird issues where like I wasn't able to swallow properly if I had my head turned. And I had this thing where like if I had my hands on my head and I turned, there was like a pop like on the front of my like where my throat is, and I was like, that can't be good. So I went to this doctor and they took an x-ray, and the doctor came back in and she goes, all right, so when was your car accident? And I was like, oh no. and then I felt like an idiot, and I had to explain to her that I did it on purpose. And yeah, she thought that I was an idiot, but rock and roll, right? It's
hazards of the job, man. I mean, this wasn't a point I'd really thought too much about, but it is a real signature style. Like a lot of people obviously rock out, but I think obviously your parts are so vital, and we'll get into that in a minute. And certainly how I changed how I listen to music and identify pieces and stuff, the textures you build. But I guess you bring so much to the band, even when you're not hitting those keys. Like energy is a massive part. It's kind of like the bands, the indie bands of the 90s. You're like a hype man as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't think about it that much. Like I just really enjoy playing live music. This is the only band that I've ever been able to do that with. I played one song once with another band that we did like a cover song. But that's the only other time that I've ever played live music. And I like it, man. I don't know. I have fun, and I just don't think about it much.
It's infectious, man. It rubs off 100%. It's like, rugby over here or football over there. And you're setting that tone. You're getting that big hit in early. You're lifting everybody up,
I honestly just can't wait for live music to be a thing again. Like I am super thankful for the time that I've gotten at home with my family during all this. But like, it's funny. It's not really funny, but it was probably like a month or two ago. We were just watching YouTube videos like as a family in our living room, and I came across the Coldplay Fix You video. I don't know if you've seen that video, but it's a video where, you know, he's doing his like walking thing and singing at the camera like they did in basically all their videos up until that point. But then at the end of the video, like probably the last quarter of the video, you realize that he's walking to like one of their shows, and he like walks up the stairs into Wembley Stadium, which the big one, right? The stadium's the big one. Yeah. And he just walks out on stage, and there's just like whatever 40,000 people there, and the remainder of the video is them playing the song live. And like, dude, I got like emotional. I was like, I mean, this is after almost, you know, it was like a year of like live music not really being a thing. And I just had the thought of like, man, like what if that doesn't happen again? Or like when it does, it's going to be amazing. Like just all these like man, just ideas, and I got all emotional, but no, it's wild.
Man, it's so alien to what's going on right now. I mean, even I hate this, like succumbing to this, the new normal. Like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist against all that. Like, I understand it's all completely necessary. Do I think some people are obviously taking advantage of it? Of course. But like, even my mindset's changed. You know, I'm a musician, nowhere near like your level. I'm a big fan of music, but I even think like, oh man, you can't just have 20,000 people in an arena now. Like your mindset's changed, you know?
For sure. And I think some of that is, a lot of it I think is valid. I think that, you know, there's going to be an amount of time that goes by from the point where whatever authorities say like, hey, you are now allowed to do this, to where people will feel comfortable doing that. Like the idea of the idea for me of being in a room with thousands of people just closed and hot and sweaty, it sounds amazing in the emotional sense, because I'm like, oh man, being in a room and feeling music with people would be great. But the everything else, I'm like, oh man, I don't know how comfortable I feel with that. You know, I think it's going to be a bit of time that has to go by before, you know, hopefully if everything goes well with the vaccines and all that, and, you know, hopefully this is able to be put behind us, there's going to be a period of time that goes by where people are just going to have to acclimate to like, oh, like this is okay, like we can like be in this room, like it's because it's just, you know, been such a ingrained, I don't know if you want to call it a trauma, but like an ingrained thing in our head of like, stay away from people, like don't breathe on people. And basically a live concert is everything opposite of that. It's like, get everybody in one room, everybody yelling, like that sort of thing. So 100%. I don't know, it's an interesting time for sure, but yeah, it's wild.
I wonder as well if, obviously, you being a parent, you'll be aware of this. Like, you know, kids and adults, like all of us, we're meant to kind of get in around germs and stuff. It builds up antibodies. Mm-hmm. Obviously, for good reason. We've had to have this pure disassociation from it all. I don't know what it's been like in kind of your state and where you are, but you know, in Scotland, me and my wife are really sociable people here in Glasgow, but no one's been in our house for like a year. I mean, we've seen people on a walk outside and stuff, but we've not had people up. And that's so weird. I wonder if there's going to be other issues with people all coming together, even when COVID's not a thing, because we've essentially been hibernating, you know?
Yeah, I think there could be. I mean, I think it will, in my non-scientific brain, I would assume that it would not be as bad as, you know, COVID. You know, I think there will definitely be probably an increase in people getting just like colds and sore throats and runny noses and that sort of thing, because, you know, those things just haven't really been happening as much. But, you know, hopefully once the needle kind of comes back to the middle, hopefully, you know, we're kind of back in a somewhat normal situation, but I'm, you know, knocking on wood at the same time, because you know, who knows?
I'm kind of, you know, hopeful for this year, but kind of resigned to the fact that it could just be another year of full disruptions. And, you know, if that means we get normality kind of next year, then whatever, you know.
Yeah, like I'm kind of in that same spot. Like I'm not looking at 2021 as being the year where like, oh yeah, okay, now we're out of 2020, it's good. It's like, I kind of think 2021 is going to be a bit of a, like I said, like the needle's going to kind of start moving back toward the middle. And then as far as like being able to like walk into a room with a bunch of people and have it be like just cool, I'm honestly thinking like 2022 is probably going to be that that time. But that said, I'm excited for this year. Like there's the idea. I don't think we're going to be touring this year. I think that it's probably not going to be until early 2022 if I had to guess. So, I'm kind of structuring my year around that and, creatively and with my family and everything. So, knowing kind of what the year is going to be going into it, I think that's a lot different than 2020 was, where we were just kind of like thrown into it. It's like, hey, you had all these plans for the year, but now you got to just forget all that and just try to figure out what you're going to do. But now going into it with more of an intentional mindset, I'm excited about it because I've got plans and things I want to do, and creatively, but also just with my family, and just trying to have a good mindset going into it.
That's the way to do it, man. And I think I wanted to kind of touch on this as well. I think content has been consumed, in so many bigger ways because people are stuck at home. I absolutely loved what you guys did with the Twitch and then put it onto YouTube, with sitting listening to the albums and breaking that down and speaking with the producers and speaking about how the songs were composed and the inspiration. Man, as a fan of just music, let alone your band, that was just so great to like
thank you.
And sink teeth into. But it really made me think, it's crazy. It seems like Erase Me is a new album, and that's because it kind of dropped, and then not too long after that the kind of world went on hold.
Yeah, it's weird for us because I don't think we've actually like said this publicly yet, but like we had plans to record a new album and have it out like mid 2020, because we had a tour booked with Slipknot for the summer of 2020. And when we got that tour confirmed, we announced it. And then our thought was, okay, we're going to record a new record, and then we want to have like at least a song out by the time we hit the road with Slipknot, which was going to be in like late May. So the initial plan was for us, fall of 2020 was going to be us doing a headlining tour off our new record. But then when COVID hit and the Slipknot tour got pushed and the world got pushed, we realized we're like, hey, like we don't really need to record this record now. Why don't we sit on it for a little while and just see what happens? And that's what we did. We really sat on it for, almost a year. And I'd be really interested to see what the record would have been had we recorded it when we were planning on, because so much has changed for us personally and creatively since then that it's really impacted the record. This is honestly the first thing that I've done where I've actually talked about us having a new record, but it's way different than it would have been. Like it's weird because Erase Me also to me feels like, man, like I saw a thing that popped up on my Facebook memories today. It was like, it was like 3 years ago, this thing happened where we were promoting the record that was about to come out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it came out in like 2018. How crazy is that? But we toured nonstop for it.
Yeah.
And so even if we put out the new record now, it would still be like, oh yeah, they put out that record like 2.5 years ago and now they have a new record. But I don't know. Time is just a weird thing lately where it's stuff is just flying by. And I don't know if that's just me getting older. And like, as people get older, they say that, but I'm just like, holy crap. Like, how was this thing a year ago or 2 years ago or whatever? It's just, it's crazy.
No, it certainly does feel like that to me as well, man. And especially, as we're concerning your music just now, especially with Erase Me, it still feels really fresh and new. And I love it, by the way, as well, as part of the collection. I was going to ask about that, like putting that on hold, as you were saying there. Do you mean that, like, did you go back and change the songs? Were they already pre-produced? And was it, lyrically and melodically things changed? Or literally were you picking at the bones and going, man, this was written a year ago, let's develop it further?
It's a little of all of it. There were entire song ideas that got scrapped. There were things that we were trying to make work that we couldn't figure out how to make work then, that we since have figured out how to make work. Like there was just riffs and parts that we're like, man, this is really cool, but we don't know how to make this work with a song, or we don't know how to fit this in, but we really like this part or this bridge idea or whatever. And we have since figured out how to do that. There's also just, I think dynamically there's been a good bit of a change as well. Like Aaron is, he's singing a lot more on this record. Spencer is like just really stepped his game up. Like everything that he's doing is so much better. And, and honestly on my end, I've been doing a lot of film scoring over the past couple years, but particularly in 2020, like that was my entire year was scoring film. So I think I brought a lot more of that sensibility into the record. Everything changed. Like there wasn't, there might be like one or two ideas that we had that kind of made it through the if you want to call it the filter of 2020, but a lot of it changed for, and it was all for the better. Like when I go back and listen to the older ideas, I'm like, oh man, I'm so glad that we held off. But who knows, I might be looking at this record in a year and be like, man, I wish we would have waited another year. But I think that's kind of the nature of art in general. You're always you're always wanting to pick at stuff,
Of course, man. Like I always think that, as soon as I write something or we put something out, I can imagine anyone does if they're, they write stories, they paint pictures, they make music. As soon as it's out there, it's not yours anymore, and people will take their own meaning on from it and their own kind of emotions attached to it and stuff. And whether you critique it back or whatever, that's just inspiration to make the next piece. If we were totally satisfied with it, you'd probably be like, well, I guess that's me done.
Yeah. And I think, that's an interesting take, I think, on, what a piece of art becomes emotionally after it's released. I think I look at that with, music and movies and, whatever, like there's certain things that were released at a certain point in my life. And, when I go back and I watch a movie or I listen to an album, that's what that is for me. I think that's interesting as it relates to 2020 as well, because for me, there's been a lot of good music that has come out in 2020, but to me, even the stuff that I love, like I have a feeling in like a year or two, I'm going to listen to it and it's just going to take me back to being, quarantined in my house, It's like that. It's weird. I don't know. I hope that that's not the case. Like I want to listen to good stuff that's come out this year and, have fond memories and have good feelings about it. But, it might be that thing where, it's the album that I listened to when I was having a really hard time in high school. And then when I listen to it, it just takes me back to that and I don't like it. But I don't know. It's
not quite weird. The same as the album you hear, like you saw the band at the festival or you're on your kind of young tours and you're in the van blasting a tune, like it's not going to be the same.
Yeah, exactly. But there's been some great art in general that's come out this year. So I'm really excited, honestly, though, to see what this year and next year bring, because the stuff that people have been doing throughout 2020, we're going to start seeing it come out, and I'm really interested to see what that is. I've gotten snippets of things from bands that we're friends with, artists that I know, directors I know, and so much of it is like next level. And I think a lot of it is because it's just been so like laser focused on, because people are just sitting and focusing on their work intently. Like their meetings aren't happening, tours aren't happening, film shoots aren't happening. It's literally just like, okay, I have these ideas. How do I make these ideas the best they can be? So I really think that this year and next year are going to be just bananas as far as the quality of art that's coming out.
No, I agree. I think anyone I know that creates anything as well has, there's been other things going on as well, but, other stresses in terms of livelihoods and stuff. However, there's definitely been time afforded to create more than there ever has before. Mm-hmm. Where do you think, scrolling back to the new album, how does it kind of, I don't mean measure up, where does it kind of fit in the kind of sound of the other records? The last one was kind of more straight up kind of rock that packs a punch with a lot more like vocals than I'd heard before from Spencer, and I thought it was amazing, like really awesomely produced, and it was a great kind of return. Lost in the Sound of Separation was one of my favorites because it was, you know, you were really shining in terms of creating the huge big soundscapes, and obviously the earlier ones are just everyone's beloved, you know, records. Where does this one kind of fit within it all?
It's funny because I'm in this weird spot where I'm like, wait, am I like allowed to talk about this? Like, because we literally just got done with the record like last week. So I'm like, and then we messaged on Instagram. You're like, hey, do a podcast. I'm like, yeah, sure. But
I can hold this off until
I mean it's not like I'm playing the record over the podcast or anything. So I guess I'm fine. But overall, the record is it's a lot heavier than we had anticipated. I think even if we would have recorded it in 2020 when we were planning on, it would not have been nearly as heavy. I think it would have been a lot more rock centered. You know, there's a lot of great melody on it and a lot of experimentation. I'm always weird about comparing our albums to other albums of ours. But I really think that, I mean, I haven't really thought super hard about what that would be. I guess I would say that it's, I would say that it's probably a really good mix of like a lot of the heaviness of Lost in the Sound of Separation, but also with like melody of Erase Me, but like with Aaron singing a lot more. But Spencer's, even his vocals are so much more developed than they even were on Erase Me, that it's like, you know, it's kind of like a half and half thing. Amazing. So I don't know. Yeah, but then some of it is just like not like anything that we've done yet. Like there's some really out there experimentation things that we haven't done before that honestly, those are my favorite things on the record. There's like a really long jammy song. It's like 7.5 minutes, and it's like this, like tells this crazy story, and it's all over the place. But it's not even mixed yet, so I mean we'll see. I want to be able to sit with it after it's mixed and hear it in an order, but yeah, I'm incredibly excited about it.
That's awesome, man. Do you feel that because I mean, one thing that really sticks out for me, and I think's awesome, is your enthusiasm for kind of new gadgets or trying new things. Whenever I see kind of documentaries from you guys recording, you know, it's like you'll be like guys, I got this new app or I got this new toy, and I think that's really inspiring as it is. A lot of people can have the same kind of gear and just update the software and stuff. You seem to like always be in search for something else. And not be afraid to use kind of rudimentary things like I've got an app on a phone, you know, like because it makes the sound I'm looking for. Do you feel that being immersed in the scoring for the movies and stuff has added a new layer to what you can bring to the band?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think specifically since early 2018, that's really been when I've been focusing on the film stuff. And that's a whole other world of, it was a skill set that I didn't have. I was just like, man, I would love to write music for film, but didn't really know how to go about it. So it's honestly just been like years of, really honing those type of skills, but also just sonically. I mean, there's, the instrumentation, the techniques that are used for, different types of film scoring. Like I did a horror film that, there was a whole sonic palette that I built for that film. And then I did like this period thriller, like takes place in the 1920s. So like there was a whole sonic palette for that, all like stringed instruments and woodwinds and stuff. And then like I did like this drama that's all like really lush, like synth type stuff. So I'm kind of like, I found that I was able to kind of take little bits from each of these areas and kind of bring it in and figure out like, well, what would work with Underoath? Like there's a song where there was an instrument that I built for the horror film that I did, and there was a part on this Underoath song where we were just like, we want this to sound just as big and as evil as possible. Like, how do we do that? And I was like, oh, I have this thing that I built for this movie, and I played it, and everyone was like, wait, what the hell is that? And I'm like, oh, I made it for this movie. I didn't think it would work here. And there was a lot of that kind of happened. So it was super fun, like really, really interesting to see how those different worlds can kind of come together and make something that's, that I'm just super stoked on, honestly.
That's awesome, man, because I guess that must be like night and day. I mean, for guitarists, of course, guitarists, drummers, basses, of course, there's new pedals, there's new cymbals, there's new styles and stuff. But I guess when you were starting out, obviously I don't want to answer the question for you, but I have no idea on like the synths and the kind of soundscaping and texture building and stuff. But I guess when you were starting out, it was kind of like, well, this is my machine, and I kind of have that to play with. So as new technologies come out, as new experience, it must just be like almost like reinventing your instrument every day or every month, whenever you learn new things.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, when I started in Underoath, I was in high school and I was a guitar player. And initially our old singer was playing keyboards and singing at the same time. And, he came to me one day and he was like, hey, we're going to either find a keyboard player or we're going to just get rid of keyboards because I don't want to do both. And I kind of just happened to fall into playing that way because back then, it was just a high school band. And, I didn't think I was really committing to anything. But here we are. I'm going to be, 40 in no time. And I'm still doing it. But but back then, I had literally just a Casio, like one of those keyboards with the speakers on the top that you can buy at like Walmart. Like that was my instrument. And then, I kind of got into, more like workstation based things. And then really once I started, this is probably, I would say probably mid 2006 when I really started working more in software, in DAWs and plugins and things like that. That was really where the gates opened up for me, where I realized like, oh my gosh, like I'll never learn all this. Like, it's going to be a lifetime of learning. And, and then it even got more so when I started doing film stuff, because then I was like, all right, I need to learn how to do orchestral music. I need to learn, what a first chair string does, a second chair string. Like, I can write this cello line on a keyboard, but an actual cellist wouldn't be able to play it, so it's going to sound unnatural. Like those type of things. And like, where does a woodwind sit in a orchestration? Where does the brass sit? Where does a violin sit? Where's the percussion go? Like all of those things. So there's that needed to be learned, but also just those instruments as well, because there's a lot of amazing software emulations of these things that 99% of people would never be able to tell the difference. So like learning those instruments and like trying to get good with that to where, I can, create scores that are believable, but not at the budget of a $50 million movie. So it's a lot of learning, but I think that's with, anybody who does anything. I think, like you were saying, that if you're a guitarist or you're a drummer, like, there's always going to be a lifetime of learning new things, whether it's techniques or equipment, or if you're if you draw or if you tattoo or whatever it is, you're always going to be learning something. And I think it's that desire to continue to learn is the thing that will make you a continually better and better artist in whatever you're doing. Because it's easy. Like if you find some measure of success in whatever you do, whether it's, I found out I can draw caricatures and sell them for, $20 a piece. Now I don't want to do anything else. Like you can get stuck in a thing, or, I have a tattoo shop and, people like these simple line drawings, so I don't really want to do anything else. It's like, yeah, you can continue to do that. But if you want to really like push what it is you're able to do as a person. Like it's that constant drive to just like, all right, what's another thing I can learn? Like, what's another way I can do this? And yeah, I don't know. I try to be intentional about that, but you know, it doesn't always turn out the way I'd hoped. But I think that trial and error is just kind of part of the process, you know?
Man, like I didn't, you know, I respected what you did, and I've been around people that kind of, you know, play the role you play. As I said, at kind of levels not as kind of high or professional, but already thought it was that in depth. But I never even thought about it like that. Like you need to know, like, you know, when I'm doing some demos, I might put some synths in and pick the string object. But you're right, I would be playing it like I would play like octaves on a guitar. That's not necessarily how, like, you know, the bow of a string is, you know, so you need to understand that. And I think, you know, that's pretty modest to be thinking that, you know, everyone will look into that kind of stuff. That's really in depth. But obviously, you know, has paid off, because when you couldn't have foreseen the band not being able to kind of make the incomes that you would be used to, you've been able to be like, well, I also have this full-time gig, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And honestly, when I first got into doing film stuff, you know, I've always known that I wanted to do that long term. It was just a matter of, I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if I, you know, had the ability to do it. So I was having a discussion with my wife, and this was a few years back, and I was like, man, I really want to do this. And she's like, well, why don't you just say you can do it, and then, you know, see what happens, you know, see if you get opportunity. And it was kind of a snowball from there. So I've been working toward this being able to be something I do full time and for the duration of my career. I just didn't think that it was going to be a thing that would come into play so soon, of like, oh, like this is now, you know, going to supplement some of what I'm losing by not touring for an entire year. So it lined up in a perfect way, and I'm super thankful. You know, it's funny though, because you know, I've been doing this for years now, but movies take so long to get made that there's one documentary that I split with another composer in LA, and that's out. But every other feature that I've scored is coming out in 2021. So I'm going to there'll be like 4 movies coming out this year. So I think this year is going to kind of be a really big tell as far as if this is something I'll be able to do long term. Like if these films come out and people are like, oh, this is really good, or it's like, yeah, that movie's good, but the score kind of sucks. Like, you know, if this year goes well, then hopefully I'll be able to continue to do it. And if not, you know, I gave it my best, and I'm still in my favorite band. So yeah,
man, I'm sure it'll go well, and I think momentum, you know, has a lot to say for itself as well. You know, when one comes out and then people check out that IMDb, and then there's like another pops out, you know, that starts.
Yeah, it'll look really good on paper. Yeah. It's like, wow, this guy did like 5 movies in a year.
But I'm sure it'll sound unreal as well, man. But yeah. I'll be watching the socials to kind of, you know, see when you put them out, and obviously you're not putting out the movie, but just to go and check them out and stuff. And I'll be looking forward to, because awesome. I love the sound of a good score. There's a movie called Slow West. I don't know if you've ever seen that. An indie movie.
I've never heard of it.
It's a story about I think it's set back in like, when was it, like the early travelers coming to America? Maybe the 20? Like the 18.
Like the covered wagons and such.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been like the 1800s. Yeah.
Yeah, so like that 20s, Jesus Christ, like that kind of time, and it's this kind of young guy and another person from Scotland come over, and then they meet these kind of like ne'er-do-wells from like, you know, other places come to America and that. But the soundtrack is unbelievable. It's beautiful. It's heartbreaking. I like just going walks in the park and listening to that. So
I'm gonna make a note. You said it's called Slow West.
Slow West. It's got some great actors in it. I can't remember the guy's name, but he's an Australian actor, and he's in loads of stuff, like loads of kind of like Sky indie movies and stuff like that. Cool, really cool movie, but the soundtrack is brilliant, and it's all strings and a lot of like, you know, like pizzicato kind of violin and lots of cello and stuff. So yeah, I love a good score.
I have this list of movies on my phone that when I have these conversations, like I just say watch this, and then so now in like 2 months I'm gonna look at this and be like, I don't know what this Slow West movie is, but then I'll watch it. And do you know who scored it by chance? Actually, I can look it up. I'm on the internet here.
Yeah, I don't know, man, but it is one of my favorites. Let's have a look.
British New Zealand film. Let's see. IMDb. Let's see who scored this thing.
You can see the American internet's far superior to Bonnie Scotland, yeah. Mum, get off the phone.
Oh, this guy's great.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Jed Kersel. He did this movie that I love called The Babadook. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, that's cool. Did he do that as well?
Yeah, he did that. Yeah, he's really good. I love that.
Yeah, this one, it's almost Shakespearean, like the film and the score. It's like Act 1, the demise. Act 2,
nice. That's cool.
The fall, and it's really awesome. So yeah, I recommend that. But yeah, I look forward to hearing your stuff, man.
Awesome, thanks. I'm stoked on it. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't suck.
So you said when you were starting out, that was something I was going to ask, because it's not the most common instrument. Like I can't think of many bands around the same time as Underoath, as far back as you guys, that kind of really implemented synth in the way you did. There's loads of bands that maybe played kind of keys and stuff like that, but keys is different to textures and stuff. So I mean, I can see a lot of obviously things that have come later, like Devil Wears Prada and even like Bring Me the Horizon, who have taken their production to, the next levels with Jordan Fish. They're surely going to be inspired by some of the stuff you've done. But did anything, obviously you said you took it on because, the singer was dropping it, but did anyone inspire the way you played or even music as a whole? What was your
inspiration? For sure. Yeah, like back then, I was super I still love Fear Factory. Like that's, I think when I heard Demanufacture by Fear Factory, that was an album, that was one of those albums where I was like, oh, I didn't know music could do this. Like, the way that they melded the electronics with the heavy music, I was like, oh, like that's something different. And it was, it was a lot of the stuff that, looking back, I can see, even if it was unconscious, the influence, a lot of textures, a lot of rhythmic stuff. It's really, really good. Also, I was really into like a good bit of like European, like black metal type stuff. But then there's bands like Nightwish that had a lot more orchestral stuff going on. It's more like power metal type stuff. But then electronically, I really liked, Depeche Mode and, a lot of the stuff that Radiohead would do. But I think as far as what I was doing in Underoath, a lot of it was inspired by, particularly Fear Factory and Nightwish back then. I don't listen to Nightwish as much as I used to, but I still revisit Fear Factory often. And Burton Bell, he's that guy's a big deal for me in my, when I was figuring out who I was musically in high school. I didn't realize, but like two of my favorite albums in high school, he sang on both of them, and I didn't know that. And then when I put that together later, I was like, oh damn, like there was a Fear Factory record, but then Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath, Ozzy's band, he put out a solo record, and Burton C. Bell was singing on that as well, and I was like, oh, that's why I love all this stuff. So
yeah, the perfect marriage of music for you. Yeah, man. Did you always have aspirations? Like, was music a hobby, or was it always like, this is what I want to do? Were you obsessed young, or?
I always feel bad saying this, but like music was 100% like a hobby. Just it was like, oh, I like heavy music, so I want to get a guitar, and I would just noodle around on the guitar. I wasn't great at guitar, and even when I joined Underoath, it was, like I said, it was just friends in high school that would play in front of nobody. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. That looks like fun. And, it wasn't until, after high school, we were touring a ton, again, playing in front of nobody. But, it just kind of snowballed into like, oh, like this is now like what I do, and I've always been just a music lover, just listen to music all the time, really just dove into albums and, the making of them and everything. And I didn't really, but I grew up in a really small town. So it was never a thing that I thought that I could do, I guess. So it's kind of like being like, oh, I'm going to be an astronaut. It's like, I grew up in like this little, like it had like my town had like 2,000 people and we were in Florida, and it's like, yeah, people are astronauts. I know that's a thing, or people are movie stars. I know that's a thing, but that's not something that we do. Like that's something that's like not even an option. So I guess maybe that played into a little bit of why I never really aspired to be like a career musician, just because that was so far out of my reality worldview that I just didn't think it would be possible. But then, we just kind of kept playing in front of nobody, and then that nobody turned into 5 people, turned into 15, and then it was just a snowball. It's wild.
I don't know if that's the kind of vibe for all of you, but I think that comes across a lot in the music. It's quite clearly you could never be called a band that, was trying to write for the radio, yet not being scared, and also not having to fall into a scene and trying to be in that scene because, for example, Dangerous Business, I'd never heard a song like that hit the mainstream so much. Mm-hmm. But that was clearly fan pushed. People loved how heavy it was. It was still super melodic. I mean, that's a recipe for absolute brilliant music, in my opinion, because I love both aspects. I love like
we do too.
pop sensibility. Like pop's not a dirty word if it's done correctly. You know what I mean? But then the heaviest breakdowns, like amazing. Like what could go wrong?
I think in general, our thing has always been, and I think it should be for any artist. Like we write what we are feeling. Like our main thing is if we are in a room and listening to this and it's making us laugh because of how awesome we think it is, mm-hmm. and you're having that like, oh my gosh, like that thing, whatever that thing is, that's what you should be writing. And there, we've had, quite a few records, and every record has been that for that time in our lives. You mentioned They're Only Chasing Safety, and, after that record kind of did what it did, when we went in to do the next record, everybody was kind of like, oh, well, if you lean into that pop sensibility and you just make bigger choruses and make it even more polished, like that, you guys are just going to go to the stratosphere. And we were just like, we don't want to do that. Like we want to write something dark and heavy, and that, because that's just what we were feeling. And that became Define the Great Line. And, that record did very well, even better than They're Only Chasing Safety. And every record since then, it was the same with Lost in the Sound. And then Aaron Left, it was the same with Disambiguation. And then Erase Me was the same there. And, it's funny because we had that discussion kind of when we were in the middle of doing this record. We were like, man, like, we don't know if this is really what people want from our band, but we don't care. Like this is the thing that we're writing right now. And like, just, parts of it are just, I think maybe the heaviest stuff we've ever done. And we're just like laughing in the studio. We're like, how is that just so evil sounding? And then other stuff where it's like super melodic and or like slow and, but I think that's a recipe for success or not even for success, but just that's a recipe to make something that will impact somebody in a real way. Because if what you're making, whatever it is that you do, if it excites you that much, there's going to be somebody else that it excites that much as well. Who knows how many people it'll be. Maybe it'll be like, 50 people who just really get what you're doing, but those 50 people are going to like just dive in, and that's going to be their thing. And I think you can feel that with, there's records that in pieces of art that are made and they just kind of feel stale and they feel, constructed, and, and it's because, it's being made to try to appeal to a mass audience rather than just jive with whoever's making it,
Yeah, man. And also I think when people buy into your band, which, is so clearly they have, your fan base is unreal, and well deserved, like they're trusting you. Like, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you thought about, what do the fans want? Do they want another of this or that? Maybe some of them, but for the most part, they are people are fans of bands because of what the band does. And what you guys do is change it up, but still keep that honesty, which is Underøath, so they're trusting you to do what you feel passionate about, and then they'll buy into that because it's quite clearly you're vibing off it so much,
Yeah. And I we're thankful for that, because that's not the norm. Like, normally if a band kind of changes what they do, that's the end of it. But the idea that anybody would look at us in the same way that I look at other bands that do a similar thing, like I was giving the example the other day. I was talking about EPs and how much I like EPs, and I was talking about Nine Inch Nails and how they're a band that even if they release an album or an EP or whatever that I'm not really feeling, I'm like, I don't think this is very good. It doesn't diminish what I think of Nine Inch Nails, because I understand what it is that they do and who it is that they are, and I'm just looking forward to the next thing. Like they put out this EP called Ad Violence, which I just loved. And then they did another one, and then they released this one called the Bad Witch EP, which I just didn't dig at all. Like I remember specifically the day it came out, I listened to it all the way through, and I was like, that is not for me. But it was not oh man, what happened to Nine Inch Nails? Like they used to be so good. It was well, they did that. It's not jiving with me, but I know that they loved it. So I can't wait to hear what it is that they love on the next record, because there's a really good chance it's going to hit me. And they did, and it did. But I don't know, that just excites me musically. And, there's not a lot of bands that I feel that confident in. And the idea that anybody would view us in that light and feel confident in, just following us on our journey. Like, yeah, that's really cool.
No, man, it's exciting. Like, I 100%, I love all music. I know that's such a cliche, but if I like it, I like it. I don't need to say, I won't listen to that genre. Like, I might not like some bands or records within that genre, but I'll give anything a chance. And
yeah,
you're right. There is some bands I'm like, I hope they make something else like that, because they're really good at that. Well, you guys, I'm just excited each time, because I'm like, this could be anything, but I know I'll love it. So
awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Man, who knows? Exciting. I mean, this might be one that we're just super pumped on, and then everybody else is like, but we're the ones playing it on stage, hopefully at some point. So we're stoked on it.
No, man, you got to be. Who did you record this one with? Someone you worked with before?
We decided we were not going to work with a producer at all on this record.
Nice.
We literally just we realized that specifically through 2020, I'm like I said, obviously I'm doing a lot of film stuff. Aaron has been co-writing with a ton of bands, recording a bunch of stuff. Tim has an entire studio in Tampa. He's been recording bands for years. And, Spencer's been writing with a bunch of people, and we were just like, other people pay us to make their music. Like, if we're all together, why is it that do we need to bring anybody into this process? Like, we all have the equipment, we all have the know-how, we all know how to do this. Like, why don't we just do it ourselves? And, we love, all the producers we worked with before, but it just felt right to just, for the first time, we've never done this before, is just take the reins completely ourselves and say, we're going to do this entire thing ourselves. We got actually our live front of house guy is the one that engineered it. He's just ridiculously talented, and obviously he's not working because, you know, we're not on the road, and we called him up. He's local to Tampa. We were like, yo, we're going to do our record ourselves. Do you want to engineer it? And we'll go from there. And he was like, hell yeah. So we just hold up us and our dude, and we just did it. And man, it was a process, you know. There was, you know, some kind of personal things that we went through, and you know, there was some arguing and some crying and some laughing, and it was a whole process, but we did it, and it felt like so good. Like, we went out to dinner the night that we got done with the record. It's not, like I said, it's not mixed yet, but the night we got done tracking it. And I was talking to Spencer about that, and, you know, he was saying, like, this record is what it is because we decided to take it on ourselves, and it would not have been what it is if we didn't have to go through all the stuff that we had to get through to get there. But I don't know, maybe it's just, it sounds like just artist waxing poetic, but yeah, I don't know, it feels special. So you can look back on this interview and, like, whenever the record comes out, and like, and then you could be like, yeah, he was right, or like, man, was he so off from what that record was. But
I totally respect that, because you know, that's something you've obviously, you know, we're probably the same age here, man, you know, mid-30s, you know, like, you've learned so much working with great producers. It's not like you're just thinking, oh, we can do that easy on your first try. You know, you've gone through it. As you said, you all do it in different ways, as side hustles, as well as full-time careers when you're not touring. So, you know, those guys that you've worked with before are contributing to it in the lessons that you've learned from them. But it would still scare me, even at the level just we're at. You know what I mean? So to be on your platform and do it, it's absolute balls, you know, because
it was honestly scary.
I often think, like, you know, on one hand, you're like, why is this producer telling me to do that? I don't need pre-production. But on the other hand, you'll leave that room and you've only taken maybe 2 bits of his suggestions for the songs, but you're like, oh man, they are killer suggestions, you know. So having that fear, but you've got to trust each other, and you're the guys that wrote it. You've been on the journey. You know what Underøath is more than anyone, you know?
Yeah, and we're all also very very opinionated musically. So the way that we view it is, if something can get through our collective filter of what we like, then it's going to come out on the other end something special. Because we realized after we got done with this record that there has not been a record since Define the Great Line was the last record that we did where we were all stoked on all of it. Actually, aside from one song that we found out there was a song on Define the Great Line that Spencer didn't like at the time, but we basically were on board for everything up until Define the Great Line. And then after Define the Great Line, you know, there were concessions being made to keep peace, you know, on, you know, certain levels. You know, there were parts of songs that some guys didn't like. But looking at it from okay, well, you know, he likes it, I don't have to like everything viewpoint. But with this record, literally every part in every song was like dissected, and like there's like a guitar part that, you know, Spencer's like, man, like it feels like it just doesn't have like what it needs, and the rest of us are like, yo, it sounds fine. And then he's like, wait, but what if it just like did this thing? And we're like, oh, that's really cool. He's like, yes, that's it. So it was that, but for every drum part, every guitar part, every vocal line, every electronic part just went through that filter, and it got down to the end, and the end is what the record is. So it kind of goes back to that thing that we were saying about, you know, if you're making art and it excites you, there's going to be somebody else who it also excites. Like I feel like if this record as a whole got through all of us and we're all stoked on it, there's going to be somebody that is also stoked on it. Whether or not it's a lot of people, who knows? But, you know, if we, like you said, if we wrote that way, then, you know, we'd be writing some stale stuff. So yeah, we'll see.
Man, that just adds I know, I'm not just giving like, blowing smoke here, but like I know that's going to excite so many Underoath fans to
I
like
hope
know
so.
that
We'll
you
see.
guys have done that yourself.
We could
Nah,
just crash and burn, but I think that's the exciting part of it.
no, that gives it like so much extra dimension to me, because no matter how much you trust a producer, or no matter how confident you are in speaking your mind, there's always going to be the point where you're probably not going to do what you just talked about for every single bit, because you don't
Mhm.
want him to be like, come on, a fuck, guys,
Yeah.
like. So
Yeah.
sometimes you're going to be a little within yourself, not always, but it's
Yeah.
just not natural. You don't push things as far as you can all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But this way, I'm sure, because if I was with my bandmates, it'd be totally different. I'd be like, nah, let's, this vocal could do these four melodies, and they might be like, man, the first one's fine. I'd be like, no, let's record all four, and then we'll decide.
Yes, that's a big thing. Like, and that's something that we did a lot of, like saying, okay, we've got this thing that works, but these two guys have other ideas. Let's chase those ideas, and then once we have those recorded, let's just A/B them. Like whichever one is better, like we'll do. And I would say probably 70% of the time, the thing that worked, the first thing, didn't end up sticking. And I think that's just a fun part of the process when you have a song that you think is like dialed, and then you dig into it for a day or two, and you're like, oh man, now it's like sharp,
Yeah. Did your front of house engineer, did he studio engineer other records as well, or will this be a kind of big deal for him as well?
No, this is the first. He did I don't know if you heard, but we did we did a live stream, a series of live streams earlier in the year in
the
2020.
Observatory.
Yeah. He
awesome,
he
man.
did the sound for those, which was basically recording a band in a studio live. And those sound great.
So good.
So no, he's never done a record before. And honestly, we just love working with dudes that we love, and we know how talented he is, and we're just like, hey, do you want to do our record? And he was like the record, and it's it's been a cool process for everyone. And honestly, I hope that this turns into him being able to do this more, because it's a talent that he's got that he has not really had a chance to pursue. So I think that after this record comes out, he'll be getting a lot more work, because he's better at our instruments than us for the most part, which is funny. Like there's a couple times where we'd be, like Aaron would be like trying to record a drum part, and then he's like not quite nailing it, and Aaron was just like, JJ, just come in and play it, and JJ's like, I can play it, but I'm not going to, because this is your record. You're going to do it. And like, he'd be jamming on like bass stuff and guitar stuff and key stuff, because he's just like an insanely talented guy. But we love working with our people. And like the observatory thing, like we got our lighting designer that we use on tour. We brought him in for that, and we just like working with our dudes, as much as possible. Keep it in the family.
Yeah, man, especially through this time, like you said, they can't work. So, it's not like, you didn't do that as a favor. That guy's earned that right. But had you been going with a name producer before, and I know you don't just pick it because of the name, like they're a name because of the talent, but the pressure would have been on. It might, in normal circumstances, if you hadn't taken this extra time to do that, you probably wouldn't have had the freedom to go, you know what, man, like, why don't you record the album?
Oh, so for sure.
It's all worked out. There's so many like hidden depths to it. It almost feels serendipitous,
It does to me, for sure. There's a lot of that stuff that's been throughout 2020, where even though COVID is it's been such a devastating thing for just, our industry, lives, so many industries across the planet. I think maybe I've just kind of made a conscious effort to focus on those things that kind of feel serendipitous, that have come about because of the situation that we're in. Like this record would not have been made this way if we were not in this situation. There's time that I've had with my kids that I would not have had if we had not been in this situation. There's so much that you can choose to look at and just recognize the positives in it. And that's kind of what I try to do, obviously not negating the nature of, COVID and lives that have been lost and everything, but just trying to look in a positive direction.
Yeah, man. And hopefully that's the overriding kind of feeling we talked about at the start. When you listen back to this record, you're not going to be thinking of that year in lockdown. You're going to be thinking of all the positive things that you were able to come out of that,
Yeah, hopefully that's the goal.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Just another wee quick one. Obviously in the last record, it was you, Spencer, and Aaron. And Tim as well.
Mm-hmm.
Were James and Grant involved in this one a little bit more hands-on?
They were involved in it more, because kind of what we realized with but before we did Erase Me is we're really just trying to play to everyone's strengths and, try to have the best record possible. And we realized that even in past records, really where James and Grant shine is being able to hear an idea and realize what's working about it and what's not. It's not so much them writing this awesome part or, just nailing this like super tight thing. It's being able to look at this and be like, hey, you guys think that this is good because of this, but it actually feels like this. Like, what if we took that bridge and put it in half and put this other thing at the end? Like that sort of input has always been where there's so many amazing moments on our records have been because of those inputs that they have. So we wanted to kind of be able to focus on that. So with this record, they're involved more than they were on Erase Me. And what we did is they came in during pre-production when we had different ideas, and we sat together in a room and we listened through every single idea and we said, okay, what's working, what's not. They would say hey, this chorus feels weird, or what if instead of doing this you went heavy on this part, or that heavy part just feels, and we literally went through and made notes on everything. And when we were in the studio, we're, trying all that stuff, implementing all those notes, they would come in, they'd be in and out during the actual tracking and, kind of doing the same thing. And then we, sat down toward the end and did the same thing again. So, they're super involved. It's just in a way that it's one of those things, like you were saying, you get to a certain age and you realize this is a good way to do things. We just realized 100%. Hey, this is where these dudes shine. And, Tim is just a ridiculously tight string player. And, we want that in the studio. We want to be able to just have a specific pocket. And we need Grant and James to be able to steer the songs in the direction that they need to go. And yeah, I think it worked out really well.
I think it's just recording the record yourself, man. I think it's another aspect of bravery and commendability, because I remember watching that documentary for Erase Me with my bandmates, and not to throw any controversial stuff. Obviously, you guys would have spoke about that all before that shit was released and stuff, and some of the guys in the band were like, oh, that seems a little bit tight. And I was like, well, nah, you know what? They're just not playing the thing you would do when you were 18 and going, that's not your strength. And if we're all going to sit down and go around everyone's opinions when these four are the main songwriters, they're just being really real,
Yeah. And for us, even amongst the four of us, our big thing is just not to have an ego about anything. There were times when I would be trying to figure out a part and Aaron would just be like, oh, wait, hold on. And kind of just come in and play it. And I'm like, oh, well, that's the part that I was trying to figure out. And there would be times when, Spencer would be trying to sing something. He's like, it's not sounding right. You'd be like, Aaron, come in and sing this part. So Aaron would come in and sing it. Or there was a guitar part that Tim's not really feeling. So Aaron would grab the guitar and play it. And that's just the fluid egoless vibe that we strive to have. It's like we want the best thing for the song. The song is king no matter what, no matter who's playing what, no matter who is writing what, we want the best song possible. And there were there were key parts that Aaron put down when I wasn't even in the studio because he had an idea, then ended up making the record, and I'm not going to record them because that works. And, and it's that way all the way down: guitar, drums, bass. Aaron played 99% of the drums on the record, but, there were, times where he's like, I don't get what it is that you guys are wanting. And then it was like, it might be 30 minutes of us trying to explain the thing. He's like, oh, I get it. Okay. Because JJ or Spencer or Tim or myself had a better idea than what he was putting down. So, yeah. And there was just so much said of, I don't, there were so many times where we were saying, we don't care who's playing what, like Tim, get on the keyboard, Aaron, play this guitar part, Spencer, play this bass part, like whatever. So, yeah.
Man, that's I think that's a great takeaway for anyone musical listening to this, man. The song is king, and
it should be, yes.
Egos have no place if you want to create the very best thing you can. If you want to just keep everyone happy and just do it for fun, that's cool, no worries. Mm-hmm. But if you want to ensure that it's the best it can be, they've got to be left at the door, eh?
Yeah, and that's, honestly, easier said than done. It's been... Mm-hmm. a long time for us to be able to kind of get to that point, and a lot of arguments, a lot of butting heads, a lot of crap that we had to go through to be able to get there, but that's where we're at. So it's worth the juice is worth the squeeze, though. So yeah.
Big time, man. I just want to finish off with a real quick one, man. Don't want to eat up all your day. I'd like to ask some of my guests. I heard a cool saying through lockdown, and it was kind of going around kind of like male mental health a lot, mm-hmm. Which is obviously something that needs a light kind of shined on it. And it was kind of talking about role models, and if you perhaps didn't have that role model. So it was be the person today that your younger self needed. Mm-hmm. So what kind of, is there anything, with all the, and I'm sure, you love your life and stuff. I'm not asking for like, how would you change things, but is there anything kind of going back would have maybe made things a little easier for younger Chris, or anything that you would like to have known back then that you know now, being where you are?
I mean, so much. I think a big thing that I wish I would have gotten a grasp on when I was younger was being okay with saying, I don't know. And being able to say sorry without a but at the end of it. I think that's those are things that I've kind of grasped a little more as I've gotten a little older. Being okay with not having an answer to something, and also just, not being that guy that apologizes with a but, because that's just like, that's the worst. But yeah, those are probably two big ones for me.
Awesome, man. Well, honestly, man, thanks so much for spending your time and talking about the new record and your processes and stuff, man. It's been a real buzz for myself.
Yeah, thank you for doing it, man. I appreciate it. And yeah, again, sorry to keep you up until like whatever, 1 a.m. or something.
Don't worry, man. My day tomorrow consists of helping a friend to move house and doing a wee radio thing, and then I've got another 23 hours to fill. So
there you go. Let's
see what happens, man. But yeah, let me know what you think of Slow West.
Yes, I will. It's on my list. I'll watch it for sure. And then after I watch it, I'll send you a note, let you know what I think.
Good, man. And yeah, link me up to the score stuff, and I'll keep an eye out, obviously, for the record. I guess it's going to be a wee while, but yeah, I'll be looking forward to it, man.
All right. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Right. Take care, my brother. Thank you so much.
Are you too? All right. Talk soon.
Yeah, we're talking about you.